evening to talk about senior events. And just kind of as a precursor, before I turn the meeting over to Mr. Evans to share some information with you, Mr. Evans and I have met and discussed what he's about to present several times. We've reviewed the guidance. Yesterday, I went in front of the COVID response team, which I think Laurie alluded to a little while ago. And what we're proposing this evening, I think, is safe, and I think it is a way for us to provide opportunities for our seniors that are lower in risk than what would normally happen in a normal year. But I think that I think Mr. Evans will also get into it. He's done a lot of work with the officers of the senior class and with the advisors, and he's gone back to the table several times because we get more information and we make an adjustment here or an adjustment there. So I hope that you will consider his proposals this evening. As I said, the COVID response team looked at the Prom proposal last night, and they were very receptive to it. And it's my recommendation that we allow the graduation ceremony that Mr. Evans is proposing and the prom that Mr. Evans is proposing. He has a couple other events that I'll let him go through, and then we can open it up for discussion. So Mr. Evans, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. LeClaire. And thank you to the members of the committee for giving me the time this evening to put these proposals forward. It's hard for me to say the prom proposal in a sentence because that means something different, and I'm not asking you all to the prom, but So three things that we want to go through this evening. One is a graduation proposal. Second is the prom. For the prom, I'm going to invite one of our senior class officers, Kylie Kiricek, to join us. She's here with us. Quinn Renahan is also the senior class advisor, and he's with us as well. So, and all three of us will be available for questions at the appropriate time. The third thing after the prom presentation will be for award ceremonies and a concert event. So, if you could bear with me, Chair, could I get permission to share my screen?
Sure. Hold on. There you go. Awesome.
Great, thank you. All right, so I'm assuming that you can see people holding up their caps. All right. So our idea for graduation, it's actually, we created this idea last year. And so you may recall it. We had to cancel last year, obviously, but the idea will be very similar. So the date will be Friday, June 4th, which is what is typically the first Friday night in June. A rain date, because obviously it will be outside, is Saturday, June 5th. Our idea is to hold the celebration on Daly Field, which is the baseball field adjacent to the parking lot of the high school. We've been in touch with the Parks and Recreation Department, and they've agreed to hold the field for us that evening and for the rain date as well. The question of who, according to the guidance put forth by DESE earlier this month, this is straight from their guidance. Attendance must be limited to faculty, administrators, speakers, graduates, and their guests only, and guests are limited to no more than 6 guests per graduate. So that's what we're putting forth in our proposal. We have the 100 graduates, and each one will be allowed to bring 6. So in order to ensure that the event can take place in a way that is appropriately spaced out, We would start with with how people arrive and then go to how they would be seated. So first was with the arrival. We have two main parking lots that we would make use of. This lot that's over here off of Taft Avenue and provides a pathway this way. And then our high school parking lot, which provides a paved path up to the fence, which has an opening about here. We would put snow fencing along here and here to create a space where we can regulate the entrance into the event, and volunteers along both of these paths to ensure that each family group was spaced as they waited entry into the event. We'll get to how we would sort of the details of that in a moment. But this very not to scale depiction shows sort of how it would work. We actually would draw with our field liner, right, we use for soccer and football events, draw boxes on the field, and each family would have their own box. Each box would be about 10 by 10 and would be 10 feet from every other box. So in order to make it sort of orderly and minimize people crossing in front of each other, there'd be a order by which people would be escorted into the event. So here's where the stage would be. These boxes, these larger boxes, are where the graduates would be. I didn't do this very well, but trust me, it would work. There'd be an aisle. All the seats would be 6 feet apart for the graduates, would have 50 on either side. And then these boxes, people would come in on this side, and first these boxes would be reserved for handicap, because the best handicap access is over here, and the first row of parking would be for handicap. But basically we would draw a line somewhere down the middle, and guests would be escorted to this box, then this box, then this box, and would fill up this row. And then the next group would fill up the next row and the next row. Again, this depiction doesn't really show well because they didn't fit as many boxes as there actually would, but there would be enough room on the field for a box for every family. I've actually done it out, and if you want to see the spreadsheet on it, it's hard to look at, but it's accurate. But it does fit, and we actually were ready to go last year with this. We had it mapped out, and so we know that we could do this with the boxes 10 feet apart, and each group, again, would have their own box. So that's how the seating would work. Additional safety precautions include screening beforehand. Graduates and staff would be recommended to participate in pool testing that week. For the graduates, it would mean coming into the building after they were done with school, but for the purposes of participating in graduation, we think we would get a pretty good turnout for that. And of course, we would have the results before the ceremony, so if there was any positive students, they and their close contacts would not be allowed to participate. We would ask guests to comply with the self-screening form and ask that anybody who responds yes to any of the questions be disqualified from participating in the event as a guest. All guests would have to be pre-registered, so as they came in, we would ask that the family units arrive together. We can't have it where somebody says, oh, I'm with so-and-so, they're way over there, and we have to walk them through the crowd to get them to their box. No, when you get there, please make sure you're all together before you come into the venue. They get checked in, they all have to be pre-registered, ask them if they've done the screening. They get escorted to their box, and they're asked to stay unless they need to use the bathroom, which would be available inside the building. Other than that, we're asking them to stay in their box. Additional safety precautions during the ceremony. Masks are required at all times except for whoever happens to be speaking. Graduates will be spaced at 6 feet apart at all times. That's during the processional, while they're sitting, coming up to get their diplomas, and during the recessional. be no live music. The diploma will not be handed directly to the graduate. This makes me very sad because it's one of the great joys of being a high school principal. But we would do as we did last year. I'd be wearing gloves, and we'd put the diploma on a stand, and the student would pick up the diploma and get it from a music stand. We would ask a professional photographer to do pictures of the diploma reception, so that people are not coming up to the stage to take pictures. And again, ask guests to stay in your box. And as per the DESE guidelines, we try to keep the ceremony as brief as possible. I think we could do entry, some speeches, diplomas, and exit within an hour and a half, and hopefully keep it under that. And then we would ask that the graduates and the families exit the property immediately and not stay to gather for group pictures and that sort of thing. Even though it feels really natural to do that, we would ask that they not. So that that's the graduation proposal. If you, I don't know how you want to proceed. If you want to talk about that now, I can take questions about that, and then do prom.
I think you should pause there in case anyone has any questions.
Oh, so I didn't quite catch what you were saying. Were you saying stay on this right now?
I was asking if you have any questions.
And ask questions.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Does anybody have any questions?
Well, I just want to first thank Principal Evans for his depiction of Space Invaders. I think that looked really great, and I think it would very well showed that we can do this safely. And I think it's excellent, all the intention that you guys brought to the unfortunate ending of last year's graduation, that we weren't able to do it because of numbers and restrictions, but this year being able to do that is wonderful. So thank you very much for all the work and thought that you put into it.
Thank you, Maren. Space Invaders is not what I was thinking, but that is a nice description of that.
Anybody else? Shannon?
I just wanted to follow up with Maren and say that, that I love the thought that was put behind it. I do want to ask though, is there any way that we could get around like not being able to hand them their diplomas?
Oh, I don't presume to know what each family's situation is, and asking them to make that choice, I think, is maybe a bit presumptuous. I think it would be safer. And I appreciate the thought, Shannon, but I think it would be safer just to say no. There's no handshaking.
I didn't necessarily mean a handshake. I mean the handover.
The handover.
It's it seems like just as dangerous as putting it on a podium for 100 kids to touch, so I'm just putting it out there. Besides, that's makes me sad a little.
Except you're a whole lot closer when you step up to someone to grab a diploma. And so I appreciate the thought of putting it on a podium.
I guess the one other comment that I have, just, I think about the #1 photograph that everybody has from graduation is the moment when the graduate is standing next to their parents, grandparents, whoever. And that's the memory that all of us have from photographs from all the different graduations that we've been a part of. So that's the one pushback, I guess, or whatever the right word is, the maybe a request to revise or look at a way that maybe families can still get that photograph. If the graduates can walk out to their families once it's all done, if the families stay in boxes, or just some other way to allow to facilitate that photograph and that moment, because that's the quintessential thing that all of us have from all of our different graduations. So I would just recommend rethinking that one particular moment. I appreciate you having a photographer for the actual handing off of the handing off of the degree or the whatever exactly that's going to work. But the moment of being able to go be with your parents and grandparents and siblings and all of that, some way to be able to incorporate that would be my suggestion.
Thanks, Maren. I appreciate that. I agree. Certainly last year's ceremony where we had people pulling up to the building and individually, we had that big 2020 that the custodians made, and it was, it was great. And the picture taking was a big part of it. We can probably think of a way to do that, that may be separate from the ceremony. Coming in, we'll have a rehearsal that morning. And maybe after the rehearsal or during the day, people can come by and take pictures in their full cap and gown in front of the stage or something like that, and maybe create appointments throughout the day so that doesn't have to be missed. It's a great idea. Oh,
I was going to invite everybody to my house afterwards, and they can take
Yeah, that's
pictures with the
perfect.
school in the backdrop. It's great.
Yeah, I guess that was going to be my, you kind of spoke to my thinking as well, which is like, is there another opportunity during the day where something like that could be facilitated? And, I was going to, my thought was, where are the students leaving with their families, like when it's all said and done? Is that the idea?
Well, yeah, I assume so. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, but what we, typically the end of graduation is just everybody hugging everybody, right? Because that's really the last time they're together. Not this year, but typically the last time they're together. So I guess that's the big thing that we're trying to avoid is the hugging and crying. And as much as that's also one of the great joys of being a high school principal is getting to see and witness that. That just feels like we're not really being respectful of the protocols that we need to be.
Yeah.
So yeah, get pictures. I could send everybody to their parents' box and they can all take selfies together or something fun or creative like that. But we are trying to, after the ceremony is over, we want to encourage people to be on their way and not linger at the school.
I appreciate that mindfulness. I just had one other quick question because you had mentioned how individuals who didn't arrive with their group would not be allowed to get to their seat. But then it also sounds like if individuals are going to be using the bathroom, they will indeed be traversing the boxes. So I just wondered if you could speak to that, and I guess, plans for, actually like, I don't know, monitoring or like cleaning bathrooms or something like that.
Well, so, one of the, you make your plan and then reality comes and you deal with things, right? So we ask everybody, the plan is arrive together as a unit and come at check-in as a unit. If there was a parent that was, left work in Boston and couldn't get there at the same time as everybody else, we're not going to force them to wait outside in the parking lot. We'll find a way to get them to their family so they can be part of the ceremony. I just want to have a plan that encourages everybody to arrive together. I think there will be some flexibility that will be required. We'll just probably say, could you wait over here until we get all these units in, and then when it's quiet, we can have somebody escort you to your box. So that's probably more likely. I don't want that out there in the public, so I'm not going to say anything about that. And so, of course, in the bathrooms, people got to use the bathroom, and so there'll be a pathway, and we'll sort of explain how that works and in and out, and there'll be volunteers at the bathrooms to help people find their way in and out.
Great, thank you.
Will there be volunteers to keep numbers low as people go in and out?
Of the bathroom?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that we don't have 5 people, 6 people chit-chatting in the bathroom.
We don't
all
do
at
that in our
once.
bathrooms anymore. We got these great.
No, but what I'm saying is you're gonna have people
Yeah,
coming.
The bathrooms
are we just-
are Yeah, the whole idea of the volunteers, exactly what you're talking about, Cindy, is to regulate how many people are in and out of the building. Actually, we'd say go ahead, and then the next person waits outside the building, and then in and out.
Perfect. Perfect. Okay.
So I would like to make a motion that we approve graduation as presented by Principal Evans, with the possibilities of the different questions that were raised for alterations, but an appreciation for the attention to detail that he and his team is going to provide to this event, and make sure that our community stays safe and is able to celebrate with safety, with health, and great opportunities for the future from there.
I
I
second
second.
that with extreme appreciation, whoever wants to second. Thank you very much, Principal Evans.
Any other discussion? All right, let's have a roll call vote. Let's start with Marissa.
Marissa Carey, aye.
Jonathan,
Jonathan Schmidt, aye.
Shannon,
Shannon Dunham, aye.
Mayor LaChapelle,
Mayor LaChapelle, aye.
Lori,
Laurie Garcia, aye.
Maren,
Maren Goldstein, aye.
and Cynthia Kuzinski, aye.
Thank you very much.
And now I think Kylie is going to present
Yeah,
the
so
prom.
I have a different presentation for the prom. So Kylie, you're going to have to let me know when you need me to change the slide.
All right, I'll let you know.
Thanks. So pull that up. Okay. All right. Can we all see it? Okay.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. So this is our plan for having a prom in 2021. Although I'm presenting the plan, the other class officers took a big role in planning it, whose names are listed underneath the first slide, and as well as our advisor, Mr. Renahan. You can change the slide. So for a venue and a date, we've decided on June 15th outside in front of the high school. We picked June 15th because that would be after not only seniors, but also juniors graduate. So we won't have to kind of risk getting more people who aren't going to prom infected at school, to really make it the individual's choice if they want to go or not, and their family's choice, obviously. And then we do have a rain date for the day after, Wednesday, June 16th. You can switch slide. So for eating, our plan is that tables will be spaced out throughout the patio and the roadway. And we are planning to have 4 students at a table, and each table be placed 6 feet apart, ensuring that there's like a marker to ensure the distance is 6 feet. And all tables will be pre-assigned as well too. So it won't be like you show up, you pick a random table. It's an advanced thing where you schedule which seat you sit at. And just to ensure that we can have enough distance between the tables, we're going to block off some of the roads coming in so that we can put more in the parking lot. So we don't have to like risk cars like coming in and getting close to tables or anything like that. And you can go to the next one. And this would kind of be like it's not to exact to scale, but this would be ideally what we'd want the tables to look like. So they'd be all spaced out there, and obviously there's not the full number of tables that would probably be there. So then you would see how they'd start to go more into the road. You can change it. So for food, we have catering set up with log rolling catering, which is basically the log cabin. And they would be catering with 3 different meal options. So we kind of give you guys a sort of sense in like helping to decide which one we do, depending on which one seems the safest to you guys. So the options would be having plated meals where the log cabin staff plates our meals. We have another option would be a food truck where we can go up to the food truck by table and get our food that way. Or we can do pre-packaged meals where the log cabin staff already boxes up the meals and they bring it to our table and we open it and eat it there. And all food would be handled by the staff. I just want to make sure that's clear too. There wouldn't be any buffet style, and no student would be handling the food. And if we did like a food truck or plated meal style, it wouldn't be a free-for-all going up. Tables would be called 2 tables at a time to go up in line to get their food, so that we can ensure the proper distancing between tables, and so that there's not as much crowding. It's going to be very directed. And you can switch to the next one. So for dancing wise, we were thinking that after everybody eats, we would move all the tables out, and that space that where we eat at would be reserved for dancing too. And there wouldn't be a dance floor or anything like that, to ensure that people aren't all trying to crowd on this one dance floor space. So it would be more open style. And to avoid close distancing while dancing, we've decided to have a 3 feet distance between people, which will be overseen by teachers and staff that are there. And each 3-foot distance will be measured and marked with a circle, so that people know to stay in that specific circle and dance there, so you won't be traveling in between the crowds. You'll stay at your marked place with 3-foot distancing with everybody. And masks will have to be on at all times besides eating. That's not an option. So we picked 3 feet because we kind of thought it was similar to the way that the classrooms worked, as we're 3 feet between desks with masks on. So we figured having a set marked space like a desk standing there with our masks on, it would be kind of equivalent to that. And we would only have bottled water as well. It wouldn't be like you go and pour yourself a drink or anything like that. Everything would be closed, have to be opened and stuff like that. And then kind of similar to the way we do things in school, if anybody is dancing and starts to feel out of breath and feels the need to take their mask off, they would tell a teacher, and then they would escort them out farther away from where everybody is dancing, kind of like how we do in school, where you kind of go towards the stop sign if you need a mask break, and they would be able to take their mask off over there, away from the crowding and everything like that. So if that's the case, we wouldn't really have to be too concerned about people pulling their masks down because they're tired from dancing, because they have an option to go a distance away and take their mask off. And you can switch the slide. So this isn't exact either, but this is kind of ideally what we would want dancing to look like. So those circles would be marked on the ground 3 feet apart. And then the rectangle would be where the DJ is, who is also a teacher at our school, Mr. Demento. And then all of the circles will be spaced out on the first patio and then out into the parking lot for additional space, so that everybody can feel separated and stay in their exact area.
Can I just interject that the program that allows me to make those circles is not, it's a pain. That's why it looks like a mess. But in real life, it would look a lot better.
That's true. You can switch the slide whenever you're ready. So just some additional rules and guidelines that we've created for prom would be strongly recommending or requiring participation in pool testing during the week of prom, or getting an independent test if you don't participate in pool testing. So we'd ask that we would test on Tuesday and then get those results on Wednesday, so that we'd know 2 days before prom that everybody is negative who's going. If somebody does test positive, all of them and their close contacts would not be allowed to go to the event. And if students do not adhere to all the guidelines we create, we do have the right to basically remove them from the prom. If they're not wearing a mask, if they haven't gotten their test, etc., we will ask them to leave. And then all students also need to sign a form before attending prom saying that they agree to all these guidelines and ensuring that they uphold all of the social distancing guidelines. And it would only be open to EHS juniors and seniors. And per state guidelines, it says that outside events have a max of 150. We're probably expecting around 100, just an estimate. And there would be nobody from other schools or anything like that coming to the event. You can flip the slide. So tickets, we thought to avoid contact between people and having to distribute and stuff like that, we would make them all virtual. and they're actually being designed by one of our seniors, Zach Clapp. And he basically designed tickets, and then when you pay and sign up for prom, sign the thing that says that you agree to all the guidelines, we will either email or text you a picture of your ticket. So when you come into prom at the door, you can show a picture on your phone and you don't have to exchange anything like that, just to make it more COVID safe. You can switch it. And this is just some statistics and guidelines that we thought would be helpful to include in the slide. So by April 19th, ages 16 and up in Massachusetts will be eligible to get the COVID vaccine. And with the prom on June 15th, many seniors and juniors will most likely be vaccinated at this time, as a pretty big handful of them already are. So that's something we wanted to keep in mind when we were planning it. Is about the vaccine, and we'd also want to encourage seniors and juniors to get the vaccine if they plan to attend prom and other events. And then again, outside gatherings are limited to 150 right now, so we would be under capacity and following those state guidelines. We'd be eating outdoors, socially distanced, very similar to how we do in schools. And tables wouldn't be at 6, they'd be at 4, so we'd have distancing between people sitting at a table. And then COVID pool testing will continue to happen, and we advise and possibly mandate with your guidance that anybody going to prom will have to get tested before prom to ensure that nobody is positive at the event to the best of our ability. And you can change it. And now it's open to you guys for any questions or comments or anything like that.
Amazing job,
Lori?
Colleen.
I applaud you and your committee. I'm really so proud of you. And I have to say that we discussed this in depth yesterday in the COVID response team. And all of us unanimously agreed that it would be safer to allow you to have this prom, to experience this rite of passage. And we can do it in a safe way. And you really went through so many of the different areas that we talked about with our public health nurse, with our city health officials. And it really is remarkable that you touched on so much. I'm sure Dr. Leclerc reported on some of the things we discussed. I would, in all transparency, as I always am transparent, like to say that Commissioner Riley actually has said that prom should not occur. But as most of you know, I really agree with Commissioner Riley, and this is one of those cases, because it is a lot safer for our seniors to be able to gather with these restrictions that you have so well outlined than having just kids go off and try to create their own prom event. So it really is remarkable. And I would like my school committee to know that because we discussed it so in depth, we are so fortunate that we work with Bree, our city health agent, and Amy, our public health nurse, who actually drafted already something that they just sent to me this afternoon called a prom advisory agreement. And you thought about that. You said that before the kids could get their tickets, that they would have to sign something. So I don't have to go over everything that they said, but you already talked about much of it, and it was on your fantastic presentation. It just outlines the risk that is involved, and it did talk about really encouraging anyone to get the vaccine who is able to before, to sign up for it is that day that it's available. So at least people will have one vaccine. It also talked about safety assurances, making sure that no one has symptoms beforehand. And then it talked about how, if there is a case, how students and anyone involved would have to be quarantined. So those are the main areas, but that can be sent to you and your committee. And I really thank you for everything that you guys have done. It sounds wonderful. I do have to say though, we also unanimously said that this should just be a senior prom. I know you're saying juniors too, but we would like it to limit the numbers. It would be a senior prom, but if the senior invites a junior, that's different. But we think it's opening up too many people to have juniors invite other people as well. If a junior goes with a senior, that will keep the numbers more manageable. That's what we discussed. So thank you very much.
Well, if nobody's going to jump in, I'll jump. Okay, Jonathan.
I was gonna, if you don't mind. So first of all, thank you so much, Kylie, for the time and effort that you put into doing that and the courage to bring it to us. I know it's hard to share and put yourself out there sometimes in these situations. So thank you. I do have one thing to say about that. Just a point of clarification, if you could. The presentation stated that only juniors and seniors from Easthampton High School would be allowed to attend. So there would be no way for them to invite somebody from, say, a different class at EHS. And you already made it pretty clear, I think, that nobody would be able to come from any other school. Is that true?
Yeah, so it would only be EHS seniors and juniors, and then like the faculty and stuff like that. There'd be nobody allowed from any other school.
Right. I see, Lori.
It has to do with that. So we were thinking, like, I know I see seniors who go out with sophomores or freshmen. So we preferred to make it a true senior prom and have them be able to invite the person they truly are dating or want to be at their prom with. So we saw that limiting it to a senior prom actually opened up more grades, but we know that when there's a junior prom, it just opens up more. Does that make sense to you, Kylie?
In some ways it does, because I feel like limiting it to only juniors and seniors would eliminate more people from EHS who aren't in the same classes. Because if we're being honest, a lot of the EHS seniors and juniors do end up in classes together. And now that we're going back in person, it's just like more blatant. So we thought that limiting it to only seniors and juniors would be a good option, because it would avoid bringing in more grades. It would make things less complicated. And we're already in pretty close contact based on like just our classes in general. So that's where we were thinking with it. But I definitely understand where you're coming from with having it just be a senior event.
And we also said that having it at the date that it would be, that school would be over. That's why we pushed it to one school is over. So
That's correct. I do want to point out the numbers a little bit here. So there are about 100 seniors and there's about 110 juniors, right? So you never get everybody to come to a prom, but if there's a ceiling of 150, we think that if it was only seniors, we did not think that there would be enough numbers to make it feel like a really big celebration. By opening it up to juniors, we might actually have to cap it at, you know, if depending on how the tickets go, we might have to say it's sold out at a certain point, but we would not. So I think what I understood you saying, Lori, is if you say it's open to seniors only, it's seniors and any other high school student that they want to invite.
yes, their date. Because from what I see with my own students, I've taught high schoolers for so many years, it's very rare for me, and I don't know, tell me if I'm wrong, that seniors just date seniors. I see this as a senior prom, and they should be with the person they really want to go to senior prom with. And we talked about having the limited numbers, but juniors will. We hope that next year we don't even have to discuss any pandemic anymore. So juniors will have that opportunity. If a junior is dating a senior, if that senior, Kylie, says, I really want to go with my junior friend in class, we hang out together all the time, that's okay. But I know once you open it up to a junior senior prom, then that's where the numbers start getting bigger. Do you agree, Principal?
It's so hard to know, Lori. I mean, I know that, yes, it's true that there are upperclassmen who date underclassmen. That's, it might be saying to a senior, you can't bring your best friend to prom. And You know, how do we do it so that everybody is that wants to come? You know, maybe if we can get a proposal, Kylie, that says, it goes back to the officers, it says seniors and their dates, and then see what the numbers are at that point. And then if there's still room, invite you first come, first served.
That makes sense to me personally. The most feedback I've heard and the most pushback I've felt from my class is that a lot of my class dates people who don't go to our school. So a lot of people have asked me to allow that and stuff like that when I said no and not put it in the plan. But that's really like the most pushback we've seen. It hasn't really been about, oh, do I get to bring like my friend or my date from this grade? It's been more, I want to bring my date who goes to Hampshire Regional or something like that. And I think that's where like the most source of numbers would come from personally. But I feel like definitely we can like revise it and look back and adjust.
Kylie, do you understand why we have to limit it to just Easthampton? We're not being mean. Do you understand that? Because of public.
No, I agreed with that from the start. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Mayor?
Yes, Kylie, an amazing plan that you've put together and your team. I just want to speak to like who should go and who shouldn't. I mean, the plan was very well thought out, and as it states, seniors and juniors from just Easthampton High, I think is a great plan, and it brings two classes together that have gone through a really horrific year. So I would defer to what the plan states, just because of all the very thorough planning you've done for every other. I mean, you've thought of things I didn't even think of until we were walked through the plan. So I just wanted to speak my support for that. Hearing what Lori says as well, but I have faith that you guys will manage seniors and juniors very safely.
Jonathan?
Well, I mean, if you want to go.
No, I can wait.
Okay.
I'm used to being last.
I think I echo the mayor's sentiment. I think I would worry some if, say, someone was able to invite a student who wasn't otherwise qualified for the prom. I could see maybe some more pushback from some of those individuals that Kylie mentioned who are feeling like they're left out because they don't get to invite the person that they're interested in. So I appreciate all of that. I did have one other maybe two other follow-up questions. One, you had mentioned that the tables were going to be removed, and I wondered what the logistics were for that. If that's something that you're planning on students helping with, if that was just going to be the staff on hand, or how you sort of saw that playing out.
So I can speak to that, I think, a little bit. The tables are the tables that we use in the cafeteria, which fold up and are on wheels, and they get folded up and pushed aside after every day, you know, and the space gets reopened. Right. So it's a fairly innocuous process, I think.
Gotcha, you got it down. Okay. And then my other question was related to the dancing bubbles. Obviously, we had somebody speak earlier to individuals dancing together, and I wondered if you were thinking about it in terms of like you have your dancing bubble, or are you imagining like individual people in each circle, or could you just speak to what you meant?
Yeah. So each like circle that was on the diagram would represent a person. So there wouldn't be any slow dancing. There wouldn't be anything like that. It's basically like if you want to like dance with your friends, you guys go in little circles that are close to each other. And then you guys dance separately with the 3-foot distancing in between. So you wouldn't be touching anybody, or you wouldn't be within like that space with anybody. It would be, that's your area, 3 feet away. That can be your friend's area.
Gotcha. Thank you for that. Yeah.
Can I follow up on that? Because I'm just, the one thing that was, I wasn't clear about your 3-foot bubble, and very sad that you guys can't have close contact dancing. I can't even imagine. But in terms of that, and you were talking about the opportunity for students to be able to realize they needed a mask break, or they wanted to, you know, they want to stop dancing and leave that bubble. How, I guess I'm asking if you could give a little bit more clarity about how would space actually be, so that there was space between the bubbles for people to walk out of their bubble and get to a mask break area, or off the dance floor if they are ready to take a break. So if you could just speak a little bit more about, I assume there has to be room even between those bubbles and such for that. So if you could just clarify that a little bit, I'd appreciate that.
I can probably speak to that, Carly. So what we imagine is you draw a bubble that has a 3-foot radius, and then every other bubble is 3 feet from that bubble.
Okay.
So there's still space in between.
Oh, 3-foot radius, you say?
Did I?
Diameter?
It would be a 3-foot diameter.
Gotcha.
Thank you. And then there would be 3 feet between each bubble.
Excellent.
That still seems in the end actually close, though. If somebody was to leave their bubble and then be walking past other bubbles, it seems like people would be quite close. So, you know, you might want to just, again, I trust the final details in the team's crew, you know, review of all that, but just making sure that there is plenty of space for people to take a break and leave their bubble and walk away and not be in too close of contact, whether it's a diameter or a radius.
Basically, the way we thought about it was basically like a classroom. So like you have a desk and like that space around your desk, and if you need to get up and use the bathroom, you basically be walking between the grouping of desks. If anything, this will give more space than classrooms do for being able to move around, because in classrooms, everything's in a row and you have just like that 3-foot space in between. While in this case, if somebody needs to get through and use the bathroom or wants to go take their mask off, people in their bubbles with the 3-foot diameter in the bubble can move back, allow more space for that person to come through. So in reality, there's kind of like a 6-foot gap between people, and then there would be a 3-foot gap when someone's trying to walk through to leave or do whatever they have to do. So it'd be very similar to a classroom with the 3-foot space in between people if they have to walk through.
Okay, I could just still imagine as people are dancing, they're going to be moving around through their 3-foot space a little bit. So it just, again, yeah, just as you guys measure it out, you know, figure out what space is possible. And if possible, I would recommend maybe even expanding them even a little bit further apart, just to give as much room between the bubbles as possible, as is possible in that space, would be my recommendation. So
the only thing I would add to that is it's not, you know, it's not just distance, but it's time. And so if someone's just walking past someone, even if they, you know, get within a couple feet, if they're truly just kind of passing by and they're outside, you know, I don't want to get to the point where the bubbles are so far away that it feels like you're not even in the same space. But yeah.
And there aren't too many students that use 3 feet worth of dance floor, Marin. That might have been a thing.
To that point, just to reiterate, you know, our epidemiologist and our public health nurse and our public health director thought this was a great plan, and really, I think as Laurie has articulated, appreciated the fact that these students created a plan that was outdoors. They really loved that, and they loved their creativity around some of the, you know, criteria that they came up with around not doing close dancing, but so they celebrated how thoughtful this plan was. And just listening to Kylie answer all of your questions about COVID nuances, I am like so impressed. Obviously, you know, a senior in high school, who would have thought a year ago that she would be such an expert in COVID rules and regulations? So I think it's great.
In fact, I was just going to say thank you for your patience with all of our questions. I actually have a couple more, but I also just saw Lori's hand go up, so I've been talking a
And
lot.
I haven't spoken. It's okay.
Mhm.
Go ahead, Lori.
Are you sure? I just want to ask Kylie, before these final decisions are made, for example, who is going to be included, I would suggest that like we could vote on this, but it would be with the stipulation that you meet with our public health nurse, because she is the one that has to do all the contact tracing in this city. It is her huge responsibility. So I would say she's in favor of the prom, but it would be with consultation with her. And I would also suggest that we require pool testing before that week to make it even safer. Kylie, you would think that's okay, just like we do for our athletes? Okay, so once again, I applaud you for your creativity and for your diligence in examining all of these details. So thank your team.
Jonathan, you wanted to
You sure?
do something again?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Lori just asked one of my questions, so thank you. Or regarding the pool testing, I just wanted to mention that same thing, so thank you, Lori. The other thing, much like athletics, I don't know about you guys, but when I'm dancing, I oftentimes work up quite the sweat, and you know, it might be worthwhile to suggest that folks have a extra mask on hand if they intend on doing something like that. I'm also getting the impression that you're looking for some feedback or direction in terms of meals, and I was wondering if that was something that either the student officers had a opinion on, or if the COVID response team had an opinion on.
I know for us, we kind of made which way or which method of like distributing or getting food kind of nuanced, just because we wanted to have your guys' input instead of presenting something and leaving it at that. So we kind of like left that up to like your guys' suggestion, whether it be a food truck where tables are called up to go, or prepackaged meals, or going up and having the staff plate something and then bringing it back. We kind of just wanted your input on that before we just wrote it in. And on like the mask thing, we can definitely like recommend maybe wearing double masking or something like that, or having an extra mask handy when we like come out with like the guidelines of that.
I think we would also encourage breaks. We could work with the DJ since I'm his boss to have breaks so that the kids can spread out and get away from and not get too overheated and not too worked up.
And did the COVID response
right,
team have an opinion, Lori, on the food?
We didn't get into those details, but I was going to suggest that Kylie's group speak. Well, we can talk about it. Actually, we'll talk about it in our next meeting, but that would be something else that I would want Amy and Bree to really make that decision, especially Bree, because she's the one who always deals with all the licenses for food. And she would have a definite opinion, what she would feel would be the safest. I have a feeling it's going to be those little boxed meals, but that's just my opinion on safety. Thank you for asking.
So I came to this meeting, to be really honest, thinking I was not going to like your prom plan, because proms right now, I'm reading so many articles about how dangerous, how they don't want proms this year. And I did not think that you could come up with plans that I would be really comfortable with. And I will tell you, I think there's still risks here. I think the risks are, obviously there's variants. the cape is got a variant. Moderna and Pfizer aren't hitting, but what you have done is created something that one is not, it's optional, okay? It's at the end of the school year. So it is a choice that families will be making. I like Marin's idea about just widening the space between those dance bubbles. I think if you can, even another foot, I agree with Marissa that you're walking by quickly. So that's very different from just hanging around. But you are talking about dancing and you're talking about fast dancing. I like the idea of the extra mass. I think you're going to need them. And I think that we can provide them. At least I hope we can, Dr. Leclerc. I think we should be able to have a stack of extra ones. They will get wet, and it is important to have mass. I don't like the idea of a food truck, but I like the idea of the meals and the plated meals. Plated meals, the staff is coming, they're masked, they're going to give the food. Everybody's not up and milling around. The boxed meals, I think is a really nice idea. Whew. The one thing I guess I really would think is that just as we were really very fussy with athletics, I think that it's an option to go to a prom, and it is not something that has to happen. And I think that we should mandate the pool testing. And if people want to go get that individual test, but I think that I'm not comfortable with it without putting that pool testing in, as we did on our poor athletes. If you want to play, it's not necessary. So get yourself pool tested. So I would be in favor of this if we made sure that everybody absolutely either got individual test or got pool tested. I'm trying to look for my notes. I'm really so impressed your team came up with. A lot of schools, I'm a class advisor myself, and schools are talking about how to do these things. And I took very avid notes because I think you all have just done a really nice job of thinking about everything we can. So I mentioned food trucks. I'm a little comfortable with everybody in a line for the food truck. I just think it adds more slip time to be mingling and too close with each other. I'm much more comfortable with boxed meals and the plated meals. The extra mass pool testing mandate, and I agree with Maren, if we could kind of increase those circles. I'm torn with Lori's idea of just seniors. If we have a maximum, I get both arguments, and I almost say that you've all done such a great job. I would leave it in your hands to make that decision. That's my personal feeling. I have not seen go together like this at any place that I've talked to. I really applaud you tonight. So that's my thing. I think it's up to you to understand how the student body feels and what might be okay. And if we're okay with 150 or less, and it's all outdoors, and we've got all these safety protocols, then does it really matter if they're juniors and seniors or just seniors? I don't know. My biggest thing, I love the day you picked because it's the end of school. And this was like May, I would maybe still be really, really concerned because I really wanted to get us through the year without an outbreak. You know, that's my hope. So I'm going to be quiet, but boy, I will tell you, I'm impressed. Really, really nice job. Lori?
I just wanted to say, when we discussed which grades would be invited, we really didn't want to just limit it to seniors, but by saying it was a senior prom to invite any other grade, we were thinking that would be better. But Kylie, that's why I asked you when I asked the principal what you think. We can't open it up to students from other districts. I know that people date in other districts. But it's up to you people who you think the seniors would most want to be with. Because if you're limiting it just to juniors, then are they going to be upset if they have a sophomore date or someone they've been seeing? And then one other thing, if you can, Kylie, the main concern that we had, especially our public health nurse, is the dancing and if they had to contact trace. So I'm wondering, with these circles that you have, if all students could be assigned maybe 5 circles. So that way, that would all be listed. And if there is a case, the contact nurse, the contact tracing nurse wouldn't have to get in touch. Like, were you in that circle at that time? We would know who was in those circles. So maybe, like, how many people are you going to have in each circle? Did we say 6? Is that?
So, table wise, there'd be 4 people at a table together. So that's pretty easy to trace, as we can pretty easily group those people together. For dancing wise, it would just be you in that area. And then 3 feet away from you would be another student. Yeah, so it's only you in that 3-foot space. It'd be you, like, if there's a circle here, you're right here. Another circle here, your friend could be right there.
I was confused when you were saying they would be moving. Okay.
And you have to stay in that circle.
All right, but maybe if they are 3 feet and there's like lots of that heavy breathing and all that, and it's not 6 feet, could those circles be limited, like have 3 clusters of circles or something? Because that really was the greatest concern, the dance floor. It's just an idea, but this, once again, this is not my forte. I don't have to do contact tracing. I would really like you to discuss this with our public health nurse, okay? How
So
she sees it best.
So I'm trying to get a handle on what you're saying. You're contact tracing of who's dancing with who right next to who? Is that what?
Yeah, people were most concerned about contact tracing people on the dance floor. And even though you're saying 3 feet apart, like, just have that conversation. Have a conversation, or we'll discuss it in COVID response. But these are all things that can be fine-tuned. We certainly have the time to make everybody feel more comfortable about it. Okay?
Yeah. Ideally, we left the 3-foot space between, just so we have enough room to fit everybody, and so that it still feels like we're together and we're not like so far away that it's weird to dance. That was our main concern too. But yeah, I'd definitely be up to talking to her about that. And also, ideally, like, when you go to the dance floor, it would be more of a table thing. So you're going to be really with the people you're sitting with. So it'd be like when you go dance, your table goes together and you're staying around the people who are at your table too.
So I wonder if I could make a recommendation of how to proceed. I think that there's, I mean, overall, again, like number of us have said, this is it is an excellent, review of the ideas and the plan, and really wonderful to see all of the pieces come together. And yet there still are some questions, I think, about the best ways to do certain pieces of this. I wonder if it wouldn't be best for us to make a vote that would be to approve having a prom with general guidelines as laid out, but requesting that their group goes out, does a little bit more research, does a little bit more interacting with the COVID response team or the district nurse, and then comes back to us with the sort of final details. But we can at least approve the concept with this in general, and gives them time then to do more research and do some more finalizing of the plan. Would that be something that seems like it would be an appropriate way to move forward tonight, Chair?
I mean, I like that idea. That was kind of where I was going to go next. I think we can, if comfortable, we approve the prom. We approve the tweaks that we just gave it a little bit. and we asked them to go back and just work it just a tiny, and believe me, I'm so impressed with what you've done so far. I believe you can come back after meeting with the COVID response team and have even a more perfect plan. Can you be more perfect? I don't know.
Our only like concern with like taking more time to like fully approve it is just that like people need time to be able to like get dresses and get the day off from work and make sure they're available that day, especially since the seniors will already be graduated. So we want to like be able to announce it sooner than later just so people have the time, because I know that prom dresses are ridiculously expensive, and especially during this we want to make sure
Yeah, I
people
think-
like have the proper time.
My understanding is we're talking about approving tonight, you having a prom, if our vote, that we approve that, but that we're asking you to go back and get some extra information. Because
so-
we may want to just tweak a couple of the protocols, that's it.
So
Does
if
that
we,
make sense?
can I clarify just a bit? So if we get, and I would like to know, is it the COVID response team? Is it the health agent? Is it the Board of Health? Which specifically should we?
Good question.
And then that you're approving a prom and that we would work with them to ensure that all the details were in place. And once we got those details in place, you would put your seal of approval on that plan regardless, so long as we know that that body has had input on the final design.
If Dr. Leclerc agrees, I think actually we should invite Kylie to come to our next COVID response team meeting, if that seems appropriate. So everyone on that team can ask the questions and we can hear your responses and we can work together to make this the safest event possible. What do you think about
Yeah.
that, Dr. Leclerc and Kylie?
I think that Kylie and any of the other officers and Mr. Renahan and Mr. Evans, I wouldn't want to have Kylie be worried she was walking into something that she didn't know what this group was. So I think if she wants to bring her officer, the class officers, and her class advisor and Mr. Evans, we can put them. We meet every other Monday at 4 p.m. virtually. So if that is a time that could work, we won't meet
26th.
next week. Yeah, we won't meet next week because it's a vacation week, but we would meet Monday, the
26th.
26th.
But if the school committee tonight votes to approve having a prom, then we can start to advertise.
Yes.
Yes, you got the date, you got the
I
go
think
ahead.
that's important.
And
So-
I actually think that Kylie would be perfectly fine going
I
herself,
think she
because
would
just
too.
seeing how she handled herself with the whole school committee this evening, and actually COVID response team we're very friendly, but you're welcome to bring whoever you would like.
Unlike this group. No.
Yeah, sounds good.
I just want to say, as a teacher, as a school committee member, I'm just so, as a parent, I was very impressed with all. And please tell your whole team, I know you're speaking for everybody, but what a nice job you did putting this together, working with, you know how safety conscious we are, and you knew what you were up against. And I think that you faced that head on, and I'm pretty proud of you. And I just
Thank
think
you.
hard, so I applaud you. So does someone want to make a motion with some of the tweaks?
Can Jonathan, you got it, or you want me to go for it?
Well, I wanted to ask one more quick question, if y'all can humor me, just regarding the dates real quick. So I was taking a quick look. I think I saw that you, and I miss saw something. I think I saw that you're thinking about the pool testing would happen on a Tuesday, you get results on a Wednesday. But I think I also recall that the date of the prom was going to be the 15th, which is in fact a Tuesday. And I'm just wondering if I miss.
Yeah, no, you're right about that, Jonathan. I think there was misspoken in the presentation. The pool testing would have to be from the week before.
And we, Sarah and I are already looking into shifting the pool testing the week before to like the Friday so that they have results on Monday.
Okay. Gotcha. Thank you. In that case, I would move that we approve the prom within the general context of the plan as presented, with a mandate of pooled testing or some sort of individual test prior to the prom taking place, with the understanding that the student officers will be meeting with the COVID response team to further tweak safety protocols so that we can have the most safe event possible.
If I can make an
second.
addendum to that, I would just like to add that I think first, the final participants of people who are invited to come, if this is okay, I would say that it should be up to the group, to the officers of this group to make that decision. I don't think we should dictate to them which type of prom it should be. So I think you leave it to them. They've already shown a lot of very clear, safety conscious sort of thinking to that. So I would leave that piece to them. And I just would really appreciate a report back on the guidance that it's given around the dancing bubbles, because that is a concern. But I think you'll be able to get there with that. And then also the food decision. I think that's not for us to decide, but we would like a report back of what is decided.
I second that.
Any more discussion?
Jonathan, you
Alright.
accept my addendums?
Yeah, sure. If that works for Sue, that works for me.
All right. Okay, if there's no discussion, let's do a vote. Mayor LaChapelle,
Mayor LaChapelle, aye.
Marissa,
Marissa Curry, aye.
Jonathan,
Jonathan Schmidt, aye.
Shannon,
Shannon Dunham, aye.
Gary,
Laurie Garcia, C.
Maren Goldstein,
Maren.
aye.
Cynthia Kwasinski, aye, and you guys, you beat a tough crowd. Good job.
Oh, but they're not done.
Well, Kylie
You
is.
want to run while the getting's good?
Kylie, great
just-
job. Congratulations.
Nice job.
Don't leave
Kylie.
yet.
Somewhere. By the way, Kylie is a reigning national We the People champion member. So, her presentation skills are well honed.
Good
That
job.
explains it.
Can I just make a comment before Kylie leaves? Can I just say something before Kylie leaves, please?
Yeah.
Okay, Kylie, when you come back to us for the presentation, I'm begging for you to come up with a good way, a safe way to take pictures. Because that
I will.
is huge. Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
I definitely will.
Thank you. Even if it's a
Thank
shower curtain
you.
between everybody.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. So thank you all very much for your attention to all of that and for your vote. I have one last thing. It's a double header, but I'm going to try and make it really quick because you basically have seen sort of how we envision things. The other things that we would like to do are academic award ceremonies, which we did not have last year at the end of the first semester. So we haven't had those, and we have not. We would like to do a National Honor Society induction, and we would like to have a concert with our band and our chorus. I'm going to hold on to that for a second because that's a little more complicated. But the idea around the award ceremonies is to have them in smaller chunks, either by grade level, only with people that are getting awards, to have them outdoors on the patio. You've seen that sort of setup with the stage up against the gym and chairs 6 feet apart. Do live streaming through Facebook if we can get that, like the volleyball team did, to allow for more people to be able to see them without having to come. Limit the number of guests per recipient. And I have not honestly have not figured out exactly the numbers, but we would obviously stay within whatever guidelines were present. Certainly the 150. I don't think we would have any one of them be up to 150. I think there would be far less. But again, near the end of school, probably that week before the last week of school, so that it doesn't interfere with the prom, which is, and graduation, which we need to put our attention to. But have something for the 9th grade, for the sophomores, for the juniors, and for the seniors. Again, only award recipients in terms of students and their and 1 or 2 guests, and do live streaming so that it's other people can tune in from outside, and keep the ceremonies brief. Same thing with the National Honor Society induction, which typically is 15, 20 kids. So that, and then the concert. Did you know that they made bell covers for instruments? They do, and we bought them, and we have them. We got them from Jerry's, and so all the tubas and trumpets and saxophones and stuff have these covers over the bells, which is great. So the guidelines for outdoor concerts, all the participants need to be 10 feet apart from each other, and then the audience needs to be 25 feet back from the musicians or singers. So we would follow all those guidelines and make sure that the space would be a one-time event, and only shuffle crowds in and out, so that you're only there to observe when your student is performing. You're not sitting through other events as well. The Drama Club has put on their presentation. I hope you had a chance to see the Wolves. Buy the tickets online at the website. And they would be happy to help out with staging and other parts of it, but they don't plan a musical or any other kind of drama production for the spring. But they'll be helping behind the scenes. So that's the last thing I'm hoping you'll consider. I do have a PowerPoint, but I'm sure you're PowerPointed out and want to get on with things.
I'm really excited that we're finding ways to get more recognition and opportunities for kids in academics and in the arts. And so I feel really confident with all of the cautious planning that you've done, that you'll be able to execute these events with the same care. And so I would definitely support these events.
Thank you, Marissa.
I say the events sound great, and I completely agree with what Marissa just said. As I guess what I'm wondering is, at what point can the principals design these events with sign-offs from the superintendent and the COVID response team and the public health, and not have us vote on every one? I'm just like wondering what that, and for the record, I would vote yes to whatever the vote is here, but I am seriously, it sounds, not that I don't enjoy hearing about this, Principal Evans, but I am just wondering.
Yeah, I would be fine not having to ask permission to do everything. I recognize the situation we're in, and I want to be respectful of it, but I would agree that I'm more streamlined, and I don't think I have anything else. Until somebody taps me, knocks on my door tomorrow and says, "You got a minute?"
I didn't mean to put you on the spot to answer, Principal. I'm throwing it out to the committee, and just a thought as I'm listening to all this great preparation.
I like the preparation, and I get the idea, but I don't see them in running through this. We have worked really hard to keep the district and the families and the students safe, and our bar is very high, and I think that it's totally reachable. So I don't have a problem with still hearing about the plans, and someone may have an issue of like guidance that we just want to have you think about. Maren came up with the idea of the circles being too close. So I'm glad you don't have any more on the agenda, but I also, quit while you're, right? Dr. Leclerc, and then
I
we were in.
think the line of demarcation, to answer the mayor's question, is really when we return to full in-person. And I know that a lot of these events that are being discussed this evening would fall after the April 26th full return to school. However, for planning purposes, where we are today is still in a hybrid model at the middle school and high school. So therefore, we're continuing to bring them to you. We would always bring kind of the graduation date and everything for your approval anyhow. But some of these other nuanced events, we would not be bringing to you in a non-COVID year for your permission to run them. We would schedule them and inform you that they were taking place. But I think the line of demarcation really is kind of the full return of students. So that's what kind of the way we're operating our thinking on.
So,
Miriam?
I guess the biggest concern that I have, and right now we're sort of operating off of hearing really good information being presented both by the principal and by Kylie, but we're operating off this sort of general trend that things are going well. And right now numbers are low, pool testing is increasing, things like that. And yet having events that are large events are obviously an increase to our risk. And so I don't want to be a downer on this, but I guess it's one thing to say graduation. It's another to say prom. Now we're saying class academics. We're saying a concert. I feel like when you have one event, you have a risk. You have a second event, you're increasing that risk, definitely closing how close it is. You know, I don't remember it's like if you have one event and suddenly the first event comes back with positive tests afterwards, you're suddenly affecting all the other ones in the future, and suddenly we're not having a graduation because of it. So I really actually do have a concern with adding on 3 more or however many more events just got added to the list, and how that ripple effect could happen by having each of those being controlled but a higher risk than not having an event, obviously, and suddenly we're not able to have graduation because the seniors are losing senior prom because of something that's happened a couple weeks before school ends. So I do have a concern about how all that plays out, and I guess I'd want to know a little bit more specifics about dates and really sort of seeing how that timing of planning would play out.
Lori and then Marissa.
I appreciate your concerns, and I'm one who has really expressed concerns since this pandemic began. But I echo Marissa's sentiments that so often we're discussing athletic events. We very rarely discuss, I mean, we're so proud of our We the People team who won virtually, but we don't have a chance to really do anything to support publicly the academics nor the arts such as band. And I am so impressed that they actually have things to cover instruments now. I was class musician in my class. Like when I hear that musicians now are going to be able to play safely during COVID, that's something that we have to support. I understand where the dates are concerned, but I think that they've thought about these things so carefully, especially with things outside, limiting the guests, that if we continue being safe and if the community knows we have to continue to be safe, we can see all of these events come to fruition. But it has to be, once again, something that is supported by everyone and everyone maintains COVID protocols. Because once everyone starts throwing it up, then we're going to be in the red. And that's what I know you fear, Maren. And as I said before, that's what happened in my teaching district. I mean, they quarantined 4 classes yesterday in their kindergarten. So I know what can happen. So everyone be safe, and hopefully we can plan other events.
I would feel a lot more comfortable if they were towards the further part of the year. You didn't say anything about what date you're talking about. I mean,
So
often senior awards the week
week
of graduation. Did I?
the week, so
You
the
say them?
the school year ends on the 16th, which is a Wednesday. The prom is the
Yep.
15th, which is the Tuesday. So, and we would use probably the Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, or 2 or 3 of those days before that, with pool testing coming the Tuesday before that. So we can certainly limit the amount we have. We can certainly, there's 2 ways of doing that: have less events with more people, or more events with fewer people. We would also, again, we could, if it makes people more comfortable, do the event with just the students and live stream it, and not have any audience members. And that way, it really is replicating school, except we're outside, so it's actually, perhaps even more, safer.
If I may.
Any discussion about that, Jonathan?
So I would like to echo both Marin's concerns and Lori's points following up to it. I think we should be cautious to not become too comfortable in approving things that we want to see happen. And at the same time, we have had sports happening right along with certain protocols in place. So I think what I would probably say is, continuing the theme, as these are optional events, could we mandate pool testing for those people who are participating, especially in the chorus and band, because I'm assuming the chorus will also be 10 feet apart, but removing their masks. Okay. Then
That's the state guideline, Jonathan.
Right. And you said only like a couple of, they would bring potentially a family member or 2, and those people would only be in the audience for this when their students are performing, you said?
Correct. And they would have to be 25 feet from the performers.
So, I mean, certainly to be consistent here, I think incorporating the pool testing it would, I think, assuage some of my concerns.
What is the date that you're proposing for the concert?
I didn't have a hard date, but I would say that it would probably be the Thursday, June 10th.
So it looks like you're talking for award ceremony June 9th, 10th, and 11th.
Well,
Yep.
I apologize for, that is a great look, Shannon. I apologize for not being more precise and having a very specific. My issue is that I don't know how many students would be participating, as in I don't know how many award recipients there would be. Certainly the seniors, we would try to fold as much of it into the graduation ceremony as possible. That's pleasant.
It's a very convincing argument there.
That's a good sound, Bill.
So, I mean, again, my concern here is, I mean, these are very different than the sports. These are not just the athletes getting together and participating. That's the request is to have parents come in or guardians, and it's all right on top of each other. I think that the reality is, if you're talking about, award events, a concert, prom, graduation, and they're all within like 10 days of each other, the possibility, and I mean, I think we're all in this place right now where we are all COVID fatigued. We are all ready for this to be over. and yet it's not. And yet there's only a limited number of us who are even vaccinated at this point. And I really, seeing this number of events right on top of each other where we wouldn't, I mean, the pool testing for prom is the same pool testing that you would do for any of these other events. You're not going to know if any one of these events becomes a spreader and suddenly you're going to have it spreading at every single one of those other events. I'm very concerned about having a number of gatherings that are right on top of each other like that.
If Aaron, would you be more comfortable, and I think we would be open to this, if we did not allow any guests at all, just the participants, just the students, and bare minimum faculty, sort of, you know, what we have in school every day, and only do live streaming for guests?
In terms of the academic award?
And the concert.
I mean, I think it gets to the fact that, yeah, our students are all in full time in school. So there would be, you know, they're in school. This is a school event. It's not letting outside public in. I think that within that does get to sort of a more standard school day, school event kind of thing that would still require a lot of thought through. And, you know, I know that you feel like we were presentation fatigued tonight, but I think that we do need those to be fully thought out and to have the level of detail that you brought to the other two presentations and thought through, you know, how those students are going to be going through, how the students are going to be, you know, potentially interacting with other participants or the teachers and staff. And I think that's unfortunately, I think that we do need to be safer than I feel like we suddenly were like, oh, this is exciting, we're going to be able to do all these things. And I don't want to be, I think we absolutely need to award and celebrate our students that are doing these different things, but I think we have to do it really carefully and very safely. And yeah, that unfortunately, that is where I lean. I'm just one participant of this committee, but that's where I lean.
Marissa, did you have something before Lori?
Well, I was just going to sort of maybe go back to an idea we were talking about earlier around drawing on the expertise of a public health nurse, because I certainly don't have that expertise, but based upon my understanding from following the news and reading reports, outside masks and distance just is really, I think, very limited risk of transmission. And so I would hate to deprive students of opportunities if there isn't really a risk of compounding exposures if we have all these mitigating factors of the outdoor space and masks and all that.
Thank you, Marissa. I was going to suggest that we also bring these events with more concrete details and dates to the COVID response team, because we talk about all the time low risk activities. And it's exactly what you said, Marissa, being outside, being distanced, being masked. And it would be a shame that these events couldn't be shared if we could do them safely. But also, Principal Evans, could we spread out the dates so they wouldn't become these spreader events that we wouldn't even know how to contact trace, and really limit the people who can attend?
I'd be happy to, you know, discuss that with the COVID response team to find the safest way to do it. And, you know, one idea is keep it as close to the end of the school year as possible to prevent kids coming back in, and that the other idea is to spread them out. I'm happy to go with whatever the experts on the team recommend. Yeah, I would be more than willing to come back to the CRT and work with them on the details.
So I'm wondering, building on something the mayor said a few minutes ago at the beginning of this conversation, are these the types of things that going forward you would be okay with going through the COVID response team? And if the COVID response team has input into the development of these events, then they really don't need to rise to the level of coming to the school committee.
Personally, I'll weigh in on this one. I think this year is just a very different year, and I think we have enough concerns that although I really put a lot of trust in the COVID response team, I still think the school committee should hear the final details on events that we're talking about that are optional, that are, you know, that are bigger numbers and necessary. And I think Maren's concerns, I hear, I will tell you, I am in favor of finding a way to do academic work. I am in favor of finding a way to have music showcased. I think those are all really important. I think it's important for us to hear those final details. That's my, and then I know the mayor wanted to weigh in, and then Marissa. Mayor?
Yes, thank you. I would be comfortable with these events being planned and overseen and signed off by the COVID response team in conjunction with the public health nurse and the health director. They have more up-to-date information and have a really good handle on it. I know personally, I certainly don't have their knowledge, and I rely on them a lot to make decisions. And as you know, Chair Kwasinski was saying about knowing the details and a report out to the school committee, I can understand that. I think in the planning of the event, we don't meet often enough and fully enough, or don't have that information that the team we have in place that has nurses and epidemiologists on it. So that was a long way of saying I'm fine that these events, any school events, not just at the high school, would go through that response team, the public health folks, and honestly, we're in a declaration of emergency. So we could say yes to an event, and the COVID response team could say yes, and the chair of Board of Health could say no, and that would be the end of it. And I know Amy and Bree talk with Maggie a lot, so that kind of gives me additional confidence in going that route.
And Amy and Bree are on our COVID response team. So they come every week. They come to all our meetings.
There you go.
Yeah. So do we want to do you want to make a motion tonight, or do you just want to table that and that will go to the COVID response team? And then we'll report back the outcome.
I think I personally would be a lot more comfortable if we could hear what the COVID response team thinks of the, and then pick it up at our next time. I mean, that would be my comfort level.
Yeah, we can put it on the April 26th CRT team, the COVID response team agenda. And then we can report out at the April 27th school committee meeting.
Does everybody like that?
I think that we should be able to weigh in at that point. I don't think we need to give up our authority to make a final decision on these school events.
But
I
after
agree.
that,
I
is
mean,
that it though?
After that is what?
Like we need to leave it up to the professionals. Because how many times have we said, well, we have to ask the COVID response team, or we have to check with, Bree, or we have to check with Amy or whatever. Like Allison, you had mentioned, once everybody goes back full time, this really isn't our jurisdiction anymore.
This year is different. I mean, we're talking about next fall when people are in school. That is very different than this year, as we are just getting kids back in for the first time. I just see them as completely different. Next fall, I hope that we can just, step back and let everything happen. But I see this year as a very different set of circumstances.
I don't disagree at all, Cindy, with that. I guess, and actually the way Maren just phrased it, we're weighing in, but we're not the final decision maker. The Board of Health is. And the COVID response team, just given their professionals, their scientific, base, that's where I'm coming from that point. And I wouldn't want them to stop reviewing these events like after April 16th, after April 26th. I think it's a part of the event process, and certainly to have the COVID response team, report back to us of what they said yes or no to, or what's going on as far as spread or latest precautions, hopefully good news. I think is great. I mean, I wouldn't mind hearing from the COVID response team every time we meet around school stuff. But that's, I agree, hopefully in the fall, but looking for the COVID response team to make the decisions on this step by step, like Kylie's plan and Principal Evans' plan, and then letting us know, what those decisions are, just so we're in the loop, communication loop.
So we'll talk about this later. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll make sure it gets on the next agenda for the COVID response team.
Sounds good.
Thank you all very much for your time. I swear I don't have anything else.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
And I just have quick report out on school reopening. And I just wrote some notes, so I'm just going to read. I didn't do a PowerPoint. But I just want to report out to everyone on the committee. We're in our second full week of students being full in person in our elementary schools. Last week was really wonderful. Students and staff were really joyful, is the word, to see each other in person again. And routines and expectations were followed, and students navigated a new normal. What I heard time and again from the principals is that the students have done everything that is asked of them. I was honestly at the high school on Friday while they had a mask break outside, and no one took their mask off. It's just second nature to them to have their mask on. As you know, I gave teachers permission when we made this transition to think about shifting instructional strategies as more students returned to full in-person learning. It wasn't a directive, but rather it was guidance, the purpose of which was to strike a balance between teaching our in-person and our remote students, now that the majority of them our students are back in person. This looks different in every classroom, and that's one of our takeaways after the first week. Some classes, actually at our elementary schools, have all students in. They have no remote learners. Some have a few students that are remote, and some may have half and half. Teachers needed the ability to shift instruction, again, for the millionth time as the school year has gone on, to meet the needs of their individual classrooms. So we needed to give them that flexibility. And the purpose of that flexibility was really to empower our teachers to adjust instruction to ensure that they're best meeting the needs of our in-person and our remote learners after a year of focusing almost exclusively on remote instruction only. So I really feel that our administrators and I feel that our classes have struck that balance, and that's the feedback I'm getting from the building principals. They're providing a nurturing environment for all our students. I've heard it said already here tonight, our teachers are doing an amazing job. And, I've checked in at the elementary level with the principals. I've been over at the schools. The teachers are pivoting. They're pivoting once again this year, and they're striking the balance that they need to make sure that all of their students are included in instruction every day. As the district leader, it's really been my role to paint the big picture and to define the expectations. And it's the administrative team's role to interpret that and work with the educators and families to solve the day-to-day challenges. I may come off as less than personal in my approach, and that's the reason why. It's imperative that I set the direction and expectation for our team to be successful in the day-to-day operations. I care deeply about our students, and I want the best for all of them, whether they're in person or remote. And I realize that families have some really serious and valid reasons for keeping children in remote learning, and respect and honor their decision. If I change expectations, it's to create a different balance due to new information or circumstances. But in the end, it's what I feel is best for all of our students. As we gear up for the return of our middle and high school students on April 26th, we are in good shape. Transportation is set, families have been informed, teachers, classrooms, our facilities are set. We have chairs at the middle school, not just buckets. If there are families that still need support to navigate this difficult decision, and there are a few families that just haven't decided yet, they still have some time. I encourage people to reach out to our schools, check in with your teacher, ask them for advice or support, your building administrator, or reach out to central office. We'll do what we can to support you to make an informed decision. Our goal, as it always has been, is to provide an exceptional experience for all our learners. Our teachers and our schools are up to the challenge, as we've proven all year long. So that's my update on our return to school.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Mayor LaChapelle, you had your hand raised?
Yes, actually, so what is the final day? One, I appreciate your comments, Dr. Leclerc. Thank you very much. Especially the role setting, the expectations. And then what's the final like day or where families have to make the decision between remote and in person? Because and on that day, is that their decision for the rest of the school year? Because I remember you talking about, every other week kids shifting would be problematic.
Yes, so what we have said to parents all along is that if we set a date of March 22nd to let the first wave of students coming in for April 5th make their decision. This week, we're still tracking down some middle school and high school families. Of course, the students have been in class, but the families just have not made a decision. As long as we can make sure that we have a desk for them on April 26th, they'll be welcome back in, even last minute. But we're saying going forward, we may need a week or two with the middle school and high school if they decide after April 26th that they want to come in, particularly if they're a student that requires transportation because there are routing issues involved. Students can choose to go remote at any time if it's what's best for their family. If they start in person and then there's a family situation and they need to go remote, they can switch to remote. There are some nuances. Remote learning for a high school student is not an opportunity to decide to stay home and call it in from bed. So if you are choosing to be in person, you need to be in person. And you may stay home if you're in quarantine or if you have COVID. And if you choose to be remote again, you choose to be remote and then you shift back to remote. So we've had those discussions with some of the older students that they can't wake up if they're an in-person student and decide they want to be remote for the day.
Around that was actually my separate. So I remember the guidance I last saw from the commissioner, like maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, was that if you decided to go remote, it wouldn't count as time in learning. And I'm wondering, how does that affect the younger kids as far as going to the next grade? And then for the high school students, what does that mean as far as progressing towards graduation?
So I want to make the distinction. If a family has decided that they are remaining in remote learning because it's the best decision for their family, their hours count. Their hours count. So they're not part of that equation. What the DESE guidance was saying is that if you have identified or selected for your child that they are an in-person learner, and then you decide you're going to keep them remote on certain days, that time on learning doesn't count. But for unless it's for quarantine's the only reason, or if you have COVID. So if a family is deciding that the model they are choosing is to remain remote, their hours count. That counts for their progress to the next grade level. It counts for their hours for the year.
Thank you very much. That's super helpful.
Marissa?
Thanks. I guess maybe I just want to pick up on some of the sort of celebratory feelings that Laurie was bringing earlier in our meeting when she had her report from the COVID response team. And I just want to take a moment to really express that I'm relieved and excited and so grateful that we've been able to open our buildings to students over the past few weeks. And I really want to thank all the members of the district leadership team and the educators and the staff who really worked to make that happen. I have heard great reports from families at the elementary, middle, and high school level. Really, they're seeing just restoration and transfer for their patients and for the students for their patients as they were waiting for this return. You know, obviously the pandemic's not over. We still have to be really vigilant, but it does feel like we're at this moment that's like a turning point. And as you know, as I'm reflecting back on it, I do feel like we've had leadership in this district and in the city that has guided us really successfully through the worst of the pandemic. And you know, in these school committee meetings, the function of these and really the value of them is that the public gets to weigh in, and the public holds us as committee members accountable for holding the district accountable, and that's all really important process. But I think it's also really important that we do, as a committee, take the opportunity to express gratitude and celebrate together, and to recognize achievements, even this great achievement of just making it through a really, really challenging year. So I'm feeling really confident as we are moving into this new phase. And I think just once again, my big thanks to all of the members of this district who are helping us really finish out this year in a strong and safe and happy way. That's all for now.
And if I could just let you know that just anecdotally, our pooled testing numbers have increased. We're averaging between 41 and 67% in each of our schools. We're trying to get that 41 up, but one of our schools is 67%. We keep putting messages out. We're working with Lynn. We've done a big push on social media, and we've had well over 100 new signups this week alone. We anticipate our numbers will get much higher after vacation when middle school and high school students come back full time. So some of our numbers are lower in middle and high school because only half of the students are there in a given week. So I'll keep you updated every time we have a meeting. And all our pools are negative so far.
Anything else before we go to payroll and
Nope, that's
minutes?
it. Thank you. I'm all set. Thank you.
Marissa, you're on.
I move to approve the school payroll dated 3/25/2021 in the amount of $532,786.31.
Second that.
Okay, Jonathan?
Jonathan Schmidt, aye.
Mayor LaChapelle?
Mayor LaChapelle, aye.
Shannon?
Shannon Dunham, aye.
Lori?
Laurie Garcia, aye.
Marissa Curry, aye.
Aaron Goldstein, aye.
And Cynthia Kuzinski, aye.
I move to approve the accounts payable authorization for payment dated 3/25/2021 in the amount of $533,887.85.
I'll second that. Jonathan Schmidt, aye.
Thank you. Shannon,
Shannon Dunham, I.
Mayor LaChapelle,
Mayor LaChapelle, aye.
Maren,
Aaron Goldstein, aye.
Lori,
Laurie Garcia, aye.
Marissa Curry, aye.
Marissa, Cynthia Kuzinski, aye.
I move to approve the school payroll dated 4/8/2021 in the amount of $529,387.50.
Second that. Jonathan Schmidt, aye.
Jonathan,
Shannon Dunham, I.
Shannon, LaChapelle,
Mayor LaChapelle, aye.
Maren,
Aaron Goldstein, aye.
Laurie Garcia, aye.
Lori,
Marissa Curry, aye.
Marissa, Cynthia Kuzinski, aye.
I move to approve the, I didn't do that one yet, sorry. I move to approve the accounts payable authorization for payment dated 4/8/2021 in the amount of $214,141.82.
I'll second that. Jonathan Schmidt, aye.
Shannon Dunham, I.
Mayor LaChapelle,
Mayor LaChapelle, aye.
Maren,
Aaron Goldstein, aye.
Laurie Garcia, aye.
Marissa Curry, aye.
Cynthia Kuzinski, aye.
I move to approve the minutes from the March 9th, 2021 executive session to be withheld until matters are resolved.
I'll second that. Jonathan Schmidt, aye.
Shannon Dunham, I.
Mayor LaChapelle, aye.
Aaron Goldstein, aye.
Laurie Garcia, aye.
Marissa Curry, aye.
Cynthia Kuzinski, aye.
I move to approve the minutes from March 31, 2021.
I'll second that. Jonathan Schmidt, aye.
Shannon Dunham, I.
Mayor LaChapelle, aye.
Aaron Goldstein, aye.
Laurie Garcia, aye.
Marissa Curry, aye.
And Cynthia Kuzinski, aye. Do we have anything under other?
I would like to,
Maren?
I have something. So I believe it was at our last meeting that it was requested to be put on the agenda that we would have report backs from the school councils or administration, particularly about parent engagement. It was something that we had set up in last August and September as a way to utilize current sort of structures, but that would be more open and flexible to get parent participation and feedback and involvement. And some of the feedback that has been provided to us that has not really worked at the same way that we certainly envisioned it last fall. And so I'm hoping that that item can be put on an agenda item soon, and make sure that it's not just administrators coming in and saying that school councils are great, but that it allows multiple voices. It doesn't have to be all good or all bad, but just to get more voices included and let us have a better full picture of how that worked this year and whether or not it's something that we might want to look at how to improve in future years. We've had such an outpouring of parent participation this year, and we want to make sure we capture that and be able to utilize that going forward. And so have a better sense of what worked and what didn't work and how we can improve for future.
Is the next meeting too soon, Dr. Leclerc?
Yes, I think so. I was originally thinking that the 27th, but it will be school vacation, and I'm really encouraging my administrators to take some time off and unplug next week. So I would hate to have them worried about developing a report. So if we could put it off
meeting
until
after-
May.
Yep.
Yep. Thank you.
And I just want to reiterate just off of what you just said, though, Superintendent Leclerc. I mean, I think this isn't just a report from the administrators.
Oh, I hear you.
I want to hear
you,
multiple
yeah.
voices, hopefully. So
Yes, I got you.
Lori?
Similarly, I have another question related to community engagement. Do you have a report, Dr. Leclerc, on what happened with talking points or multilingual ways to communicate with families? You were going to meet with Julianne the next day after our last meeting.
I can get you some information. We're still struggling with a few different things related to that right now. We have a few
Okay.
different vendors that are involved. We have some vendors we already pay money to that we're trying to work with before we make an investment in another product, and we're trying to see if we can get some of the things we currently have to do what we need them to do.
Okay, I can understand that, but I just think that we've just gone through many months where people did not have the correct information because they couldn't understand it. And once again, I am saying it's not just our Spanish speakers. We have to think about the 20 different language groups in this community. And I cannot highlight the necessity to put something in place immediately. Thank you.
So can we talk about that in our May meeting, and that'll give you a little bit of time?
Yep.
We'll put that on the May agenda, talking points. Just an update.
And do we have one meeting or two meetings in May? Because I know that
Yeah, Sue, hi.
I know that we are planning an equity update in May. And I think we were planning that on the first date in May. I can push it back if you need me to, but that's another topic that we wanted to give an update on the SRO.
I'm pretty certain we have one on the 11th and the 25th.
Okay.
That would make sense. Sue, is that right? The 11th and 25th?
I don't have the agenda with me. It sounds right.
Okay. Maren's usually really good at knowing these, so.
So I'll contact the chair and see what order she wants these to go in.
Sure. All right, awesome. Anything else before we?
So I
Shannon?
was actually just going to bring up the SRO discussion. Allison's now trying to plan a group meeting for the end of April. But we had a meeting this week working on recommendations that we're getting ready to, submit. And we wanted to discuss it with a full, really stakeholder group, really. And that's what Allison's trying to set up for the end of April. So I just wanted to let you guys know we are still working on that. I wanted to say thank you to all of the volunteers from Akine who stepped up and made deliveries for lunches for the first part of this year. I also want to send out a huge shout out to Mayor LaChapelle and the fire department and the CERT group. Lindsay, thank you for taking that over and really, making it happen and, acknowledging that it needed to be done. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Anything else? So I'd like to, Jonathan, you look like you have one more thing.
I was just going to say, I make a motion, we move to executive session.
We got to go to executive session. So we'll just
I'll
do a
second
roll
that.
call. vote. We will not be returning. We will be adjourning from executive session. Okay, Jonathan,
Jonathan Schmidt, aye.
Shannon,
Shannon Dunn, am I?
everybody moved. Mayor LaChapelle,
Aye.
Maren Goldstein, aye.
Laurie Garcia, aye.
Marissa Curry, aye.
and Cynthia Kwasinski, aye. Thank you for everybody's attendance. Thank you for your thoughts. Have a good night. We'll give everybody, I think this is going to be pretty short, so we'll just let everybody, I'm going to stop recording, and Easthampton Media hopefully will drop out in a